Hi guys, welcome back to another YouTube tutorial. This is one of the meals I enjoy making. I can't tell you why, but I just love making kontomire stew. Yes, and it's always so delicious because you can enjoy it with a variety of things. So I'm going to be using some cow meat for this recipe. Wash it very well. Add in your blended onion, ginger and garlic paste as usual. Then I add in some seasoning cube. I'm going to add some salt to taste and give that a good mix. You can use any seasoning of your choice, but this is my go-to all the time. Okay, so you're going to want to give this a mix. And if you know me, you know I don't like to add water when I'm cooking my protein. I like the spices to infuse into the protein and for the protein to also produce its own juice, just like this. My wele was really soft, so I didn't want to add it in too early, so I added it in at this point. Gave that a good mix and I covered that to let it cook for a bit. I noticed that my meat was still not tender enough and I needed the stock, so I went ahead to add in some water. But if your meat is tender enough and you have enough stock, because you're going to need a stock, then you don't need to add in any more water. But I did need the water. So I gave that a good mix, tasted it to make sure my salt was okay. Then I covered that to let it proceed to cook. Then I went ahead to soak my kontomire into some salt water. This is to get rid of all the bugs and the germs that are in leafy vegetables that we don't see. Yes, I repeated this process for I think about 2 times just so I can make sure my kontomire is very clean. So I just scooped that out and took it into another bowl. Try to drain all the water from it. Then I put some water to a boil. Then I added in my kontomire. This makes it cook faster and I don't have to overcook my kontomire. There's another way you can also cook your kontomire. You can decide to soak it into the salt water till you're ready to use. Then you put it straight into the stew base that you've already done. Okay, so there are like different ways of cooking, but my mood determines which one I'm going to go for, and this is what I was feeling like today. So at this point, my kontomire was done, and kontomire would shrink and just disgrace you. So you're going to want to always make sure that you have the right ratio. In another pot, you're going to want to add in some palm oil, some blended onion, ginger and garlic paste, and you give that a good mix. You can use some bonnet or kakao, which is very optional, but I really do not like all that in my stews, if you noticed. So I then added in some blended scotch bonnet pepper, and I like the green one because it gives it more flavor and the aroma is just amazing. Gave that a good mix and I let that simmer for a bit before I proceeded to add in my fresh tomatoes. I let that simmer for some time because I didn't want my kontomire tasting sweet and sour because of the tomatoes. Proceeded to add in my meat. It wasn't fully tender like I wanted it to be, so I let that cook more in the stew, and this also helps the flavor of the stew to infuse into the meat and make it taste delicious. Then added in my cow meat stock, gave that a good mix. I would always use my stock to make my stew or my soups because it's very important and it gives the meal a different flavor. I added in some seasoning cube to taste. Gave that a good mix. Then I tasted it to see if the salt was okay. Remember, I did add salt into the cow meat stock, so I'd want to taste that before I proceed to add it. It was now time to add in my kontomire, so that is exactly what I was doing. So that's what you can see. I was trying to push it down so I could mix it easily and not create a mess. Okay, exactly, just like that. You're going to want to be gentle and careful with it. I added in my wele because my wele ended up being very soft and I didn't want it to just mash and disappear in the stew. I wanted to be able to see my wele and enjoy it very well. Okay. All this I'm showing you is the way that I cook my food, but you don't necessarily have to do exactly what I'm doing, but if you do that, it's going to be best for you. I added in some salt to taste. Then I had fried my agushie in another pan with some palm oil. Then I added it in at this point. As I mentioned earlier, there are so many ways to make kontomire. Okay, so before you even add in your meat and the stock, you can go ahead and add in your agushie paste, which is also another way. But this is the way that I was going for today. As I said, my mood determines how I make my kontomire. So yes, my kontomire stew was all done at this point. I tasted it and it was so delicious. This meal can be enjoyed with rice and pesi eba, however you like to enjoy it.